So good morning and welcome to the Painpoint Workshops, Problems and Challenges to Tackle through Innovation Procurement of Climate Services based on Earth Observation. The purpose of today is to have an interesting meeting, to be able to have some discussions, to see what are the main problems that you're facing regarding climate change, mitigation and adaptation. We will start with a tour de table, and we will go into the context and objectives of PROTECT, especially the PCP that PROTECT is preparing on climate services and based on Earth observation. We will go through the EAFIP methodology, step 1, especially needs assessment. We will see what the expected outcome is that we pursue with these Painpoint workshops in order to prepare the PCP. We will have some questions and open discussions, and the next steps on what we'll have to do in order to prepare for the PCP. I would see if we go to the tour de table or start directly with the context and objectives of PROTECT, since we have a little bit of time that has been run already. I receive any suggestions on the chat. Some people are still joining, and I will be checking the chat as well. I go for the context. Perfect. Thank you so much, Paolo. We go then for the context of PROTECT. So what is the mission of PROTECT? PROTECT is preparing and equipping a community of public procurers to join and undertake a cross-border coordinated pre-commercial procurement in order to steer the development of the next generation of climate services based on Earth observation. There is already a pre-announcement of a PCP call, that is the Horizon CL6 2024 Governance 1.5, on the customization, pre-operationalization of prototypes and user service in the area of climate change adaptation and mitigation. So PROTECT is already preparing for this PCP goal under the Horizon Europe. What we want to do is understand which are common needs or similar pressing challenges related to climate change in order to prepare and have these realistic needs undertaken for the pre-commercial procurement. And we will do this looking into what's going on, what are the problems in the 5 selected application domains. So first of all, I'm going to have a question here for you. If you can look into the Mentimeter, you have the QR code there, and go please to the Mentimeter, and I will ask you a question now. And that the question is, what is the experience of your organization with Earth observation data and or related services? And you can vote now. Let's see. We're going to see the voting. We're going to give some time for people to vote. Okay. Okay. It's fine. Thank you so much for your voting. We'll look into this later because we'll explain then more about Earth observation related to climate services. Okay, so just to come back to the main objectives and actions of PROTECT, we have to facilitate the definition and aggregation of needs and functional requirements for climate services, explaining, fostering, and supporting and buying with impact approach. In that regard, also, PROTECT is preparing the operational ground for one or more joint cross-border or coordinated pre-commercial procurement processes, as we mentioned before. What does it mean to have functional specifications for the tender, for the pre-commercial procurement? We know that as provided by the legal framework, functional and performance-related requirements are appropriate means to favor innovation in public procurement and should be used as widely as possible. With functional specification, you describe the requirements that an innovative solution must meet, but you give the suppliers sufficient space and freedom to come up with new or their own ideas. And this gives the space for the best possibilities of offers of solutions, and solutions that perhaps you have not even have imagined beforehand. We say that there is no innovation without functional specification. So what we try to do also in this workshop is to look into how we describe the problems into functional requirements. What are the main questions that we ask when we try to look into the functional requirements? We ask, what problem do we want to solve? What is the cause of the problem? What do we want to fulfill by the service, the product, or the solution? And there are some techniques that are widely used in order to do that. One of those is the functional analysis system technique. In this diagram, we ask these questions on how and why. How do we tackle the problem? Why do we tackle the problem? Defining the scope of this problem, the scope of the study. So to see the logical relation between the functions. You have received some material in order to do that, to reflect, to do some homework on that. And we will try to do this later in this workshop with your ideas, with the things that you have found out. So in the context of climate change problems and risk, in the 5 applications domain of PROTECT, we see that there are some common risks that are faced by all. And these risks are for marine and coastal environment, the sea contamination, for example, the pollution, the rising levels of and coastal erosion. For energy and utilities, you have the disruption of services. In sustainable urban communities, you have the waste management problem, the contamination, the heat waves, the water scarcity. For agriculture, forestry, and other land use, you experience perhaps food shortage, or could experience food shortage, deforestation, drought. In civil security protection, other problems are fires, floods, loss of inhabitability. If we refer to the EU taxonomy regulation that is tackling aspects on sustainability in relation to the economic activities and the investments, we see that the objective of the environmental objective of climate change adaptation should contribute substantially to reducing or preventing the adverse impact of the current or expected future climate or the risks of such adverse climates. And these are some of the risks that we have looked into, or you need to look into and experience within these application domains.
Anna,
yes.
Excuse me. Stefka has raised her hand.
Yes.
Apparently there is some issue with people waiting in the lobby.
Oh, okay. How do I? Let me
Stefka?
see. Yes. Thank you,
I know that a couple of sorry to interrupt. I know that a couple of our colleagues are stuck in the lobby indeed. So maybe.
Okay. Thank you, Stefka. I gave them access, so probably they already joined. Hopefully, I think so.
Thank you, Ana Lucia.
Thank you very much for letting me know, because sometimes I cannot see the full screen with you. And when I click in the other side, I lose the other screen for the clicking the slides. So participants to this paper workshop, the invited people have received some material explaining one of the problems that was addressed during the PROTECT high-level conference in Barcelona, and that was the illegal dumping of waste. It seems that this is a common problem, and it's a problem that may cause damage because if there are heavy flows, for example, and that carries the waste, it can contaminate the soil, the water. And the question is, how can Earth observation help with the waste management, can help into feeding systems with information, with alerts, to make it possible to monitor, to warn, and to be able to take some actions earlier, thanks to the more real-time notifications on this. So this was was one of the problems that was put on the table in order to see whether this is such a common problem for many of the public authorities, and this could be one of those that can be explored for a possible pre-commercial procurement. So here I have another question for you that's regarding the detection of illegal waste. I want to know if this detection of illegal waste is a relevant need for your organization or not. So let's see if we go to the next question. And we're waiting for the players to come. And we see if everybody is going to be answering. And let's see. Okay. So there are two that is perhaps is a problem. So we can examine a little bit more. We can also ask other participants that may join in further workshops or can let us know more about it in a different webinar on a different meeting. Okay. So let's go. Sorry for that. We go back to the presentation, and here is our presentation on the question. Perfect. Let's go then. So now that we have looked into this context of Protect and some of the problems in the applications domain, and one of the problems that was already addressed in the high-level conference, let's look a little bit further into what is Earth observation. And I would like to give the floor now to Ioana to give us a short presentation and explain what are the possibilities of Earth observation. So Ioana, I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Ana Lucia. Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to our PainPoint workshop. So according to European Space Agency, Earth observation is defined as the process of acquiring observations of the Earth's surface and atmosphere via sensors mounted on satellites, aircraft, drones, or at the surface, resulting in data in the form of digital imagery. As you might know, for the last several decades, EO has been an essential tool for monitoring the planet, the environment, the human activities on the planet, and also the impacts resulted from these activities. For instance, Earth observation has been fundamental to monitoring climate change over the past few decades, as satellites provide a clear, uniform, and continuous picture of changes across the entire planet. The vast amount of data collected through EO is processed and converted into actionable information for the end users across several industries. And two supporting technologies that enable this intermediate step of the processing Earth observation data are artificial intelligence, or AI, and cloud computing. So from the cloud computing, we have seen, regarding the cloud computing, we have seen advancements in the last past years that have enabled the efficient storage and processing of the digital data, thereby facilitating the conversion of Earth observation data into useful analytics. And artificial intelligence, which is the field of computer science dealing with the making intelligent computer programs, has allowed the petabytes of data collected from satellites on a daily basis to be combined effectively, allowing to the users to derive the needed insights. So these two together, the mix between the AI and cloud computing have enabled the rapid growth of the EO market, leading to the development of several applications of Earth observation. Next slide, please.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So one of the biggest EO programs in the world is Copernicus program, and it is being managed by European Commission. And the objective is to monitor and forecast the state of the environment on land, sea, and in the atmosphere in order to support climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies, the efficient management of emergency situations, and the improvement of the security of every citizen. Served by the dedicated Copernicus Sentinel satellites, the data collected is then integrated with non-satellite sources to provide reliable and up-to-date.
I think we lost Ioana. for a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why did you lose me?
Oh, I think, yeah, let's, you're talking about the, yeah, you can take it from the efficient management of emergency situations.
Oh, okay. Served by the dedicated Copernicus Sentinel satellites, the data collected is then integrated with non-satellite sources to provide reliable and up-to-date information about 6 thematic areas: land, marine, atmosphere, climate change, emergency management, and security. Next slide, please. So what is the role of Earth observation in climate services? As the climate crisis, you might know, that continues to evolve with the ongoing global warming, the governments and businesses around the world are focusing on climate adaptation and climate mitigation initiatives. EU data is expected to play a crucial role in the development of climate services, both focusing on adaptation and mitigation. Satellites, which have been monitoring the Earth continuously and helping our understanding of climate change, provide vital information regarding the state and evolution of the environment, as well as regarding the human activities on the planet. As a result, climate services applicable to several industries are expected to integrate Earth observation data into their products, and in order to take into account the environmental factors and changes over the time. Several emerging climate services have already started to integrate Earth observation data into their development, from providing extreme weather alerts for better disaster preparedness to both governments and businesses to delivering crop-level insights to farmers, enabling water savings and improving overall yields. There are a number of climate services currently available in the market across a number of industries. Next slide, please. So we are wondering, how can climate services apply to the 5 application domain? And now we are going to give you a definition for the marine and coastal environment, which is one of the 5 application domains for Protect. And we are defining the marine and coastal environment as aquatic environments with high levels of dissolved salt. And this can include open ocean, the deep sea ocean, and coastal marine ecosystems. And the climate services rely on Earth observation data for precise nowcasting and forecasting, for informing ocean weather algorithms and monitoring parameters influencing water quality. The next one, please. And of course, there are like multiple examples of usage, but today we focused on only one, so you can have like a better understanding of it. And we have the categories being called environmental monitoring, and an example of usage can be marine pollution monitoring. For example, there are a lot of give me one moment so I can find the word. It can be a lot of trash, or a lot of I don't know, maybe garbage that can be found in the nowadays waters. And with Earth observation, this can be identified in order like to see the level or the location where this is happening, and how it influences the ecosystem of the water as well. So a list of applications can be SAR based and optical satellite data that can be used for detecting and monitoring of oil spills and marine litter. Earth observation also provides forecasts of sea currents and sea surface heights like altimetry, sea surface salinity, sea surface temperature, ocean color, and sea ice data, useful for monitoring and forecasting the course of the pollution. Moreover, the remote sensing data can also contribute to identifying the polluters, like to be able to understand how how these polluters can influence the water quality and also like the parameters of the water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for this very clear explanation, very nice. And if we want to look at an example of functional requirements also in this application domain, we would see how we could describe it with this verb and this measurable noun, like, for example, monitoring climate change impact of natural coastal processes and ecosystems, sensing remotely time series of data for water constituents and other parameters, or contributing to models of ocean surface, or assessing environmental risks based on high-resolution wind forecast. So you see there are many possibilities that can be in which we can use Earth observation to contribute to a better management of climate. So what climate services is Protect looking at? And here I would like to give the floor to Stefka, to explain a little bit what are we looking at, how these taxonomy of services has been reviewed and checked by Protect, in the context of Protect.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ana Lucia, for passing the floor. Just a couple of words about what the Protect taxonomy is. So we have tried to overlap several existing taxonomies of climate services with taxonomies that were looking exclusively at Earth observation services. And we have come up with different categories of climate services that are gathered together in subdomains that are gathered together in each of the 5 domains that Protect deals with. Here on your screens, you should be able to see the subdomains and the category of climate services under the marine and coastal environment. And we think that it is important to have it sometimes at hand, because there has been increasing amounts of research on what climate services are, and there are even some definitions, but nonetheless, it can be very complicated to figure out what one's needs are, and especially what the market is offering. So, for instance, if you look at the category of climate services, you could see answers to the question, what is the market offering at the current time? So you can understand what your needs are, and you can also understand if the market is not really offering a response to your needs. And what is interesting, just to give you an example, is that the different categories of climate services, sometimes it may seem very, very similar, although for example, they all are based on Earth observation data. However, they have been divided on the user. So, for instance, from the list that we have, the data used for navigation from the Earth observation site is pretty much the same data that is used for vessel tracking, but we have divided them as we are looking into different stakeholders that are interested in one or the other. And if you don't have any questions, I would leave you there, hoping that I have provided enough context at what you're looking at and why it may be useful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefka. Very nice presentation. I think if there's any question from the audience on the topics that we have just covered on the climate services, on Earth observation, we can just proceed. No questions? Okay, nothing on the chat either. Great, thank you so much. Okay, let's go now. We're going to pass this because we have these from other application domains, but we will go now with you through the part on the EAFIP methodology. So we have mentioned that we are preparing a pre-commercial procurement, and in order to do that, we are applying the methodology that has been developed in the context of the European Assistance for Innovation Procurement Initiative of the European Commission, carried from DG Connect. So what is this EAFIP methodology? It's a step-by-step methodology to prepare an innovation procurement, whether it's a pre-commercial procurement or a public procurement of innovative solutions. So it takes you throughout the steps from the understanding of the needs that you have to the prioritization of these needs through sessions with users, through the evaluation of the needs. Then going to a second step, a step where you do the state-of-the-art analysis, looking at relevant patent standards and literature, and overview of innovative suppliers. By doing that, we also go through, look at the standards, and we validate our findings through an open market consultation where we see what is the feasibility, are the possibilities that the market are offering. We test the business case assumptions and the calculations, and we get some insight also to prepare the tender for the procurement. I think there's somebody joining now. Yes, great. So after doing the market consultation, we fine-tune the business case. We have this cost and benefit analysis. We think about different scenarios. We see which is the best scenario in order also to define in step 5 the procurement strategy and the tender documents. By knowing which is the technology readiness level of the desired solution, we will know whether the research and development is needed, or we can have a solution already at a higher technology readiness level that we can actually purchase the solution and test the solution. We also, in this moment of the procurement strategy, define the intellectual property rights strategy. We see whether there are specific provisions that we need to foresee in the tender documents. Then we go to the procurement process itself. Then we have the tender process, the evaluation of proposal, the award of the public contract, and it comes then the contract management. Specifically for PCP, and we have contract management already in phase 2 and 3 of these competitive phases, and we need to evaluate the proposals. We monitor the milestones and the deliverables, and in the case of PPI procedures and contracts, we have value engineering clauses that we also monitor. The following steps are related to the evaluations and the lessons learned. That's a constant evaluation to know what are the results, what are the benchmarks, and whether we need to make improvements. We also have both contract management in the case, for example, of intellectual property right clauses that require the monitoring of certain obligations, for example, in case of royalties, also obligations regarding standardization, also the links with eventual capital. We basically in PCP monitor also the commercialization of the solutions, and these are some of the obligations and requirements set for the contractors, for the technology vendors. And we now, in this part of the preparation of the PCP for Protect, we are going to focus on the 5 main steps of this EAFIP step-by-step methodology. So looking into these 5 steps, we will see that we are going to have a business case methodology preparation. Here you have the 5 main steps, and we are at the moment at the needs assessment. So we want to know what are the problems that you experience in your application domain, what are the requests, what are the functional requirements that you have. With this, we will go to develop some, or to define some keywords based on use cases. And with these keywords, we will perform a prior art analysis and an IPR search to establish what is the TRL level, what is the maturity of the solutions available that can tackle the unmet needs of contracting authorities. There will be also an analysis of the standard landscape to see what is the level of consensus on a specific area. And with this information, we will have an open market consultation. So Protect will launch an open market consultation to challenge the findings with the market, to see what the market can offer. And with that, we will proceed to the value calculations and decide on which trajectory of the procurement we will follow. Okay, so any questions now from anybody? We will go now to step 1, and this is where we are at the moment, and this is where we want your efforts in order to identify the needs, to assess them, to see what are the challenges. This is why it's the pain point workshop. We want to know which challenges are you facing, whether they're current, whether they're future. Now we have some pressing and imminent challenges faced in the context of climate change. So the idea is that we focus on how are we going to define these functionalities that we require. We want something at the end of the workshop. We expect to have a description of a problem as a functional requirement. Hopefully we'll have a use case that is related to climate change services, climate services using Earth observation, and identifying, if possible, some value pilots, some scenarios that we can assess further that are related to solutions to be developed to tackle climate service solutions using Earth observation. How are we going to do that, and what is the idea of this workshop? We want to use some value methodologies to trigger your analysis, the way you're thinking at your problems. These value methodologies are used to prioritize and fine-tune the needs on the climate challenges that we will identify in the 5 application domains. These are standard methodologies based also in the value management standard. As I mentioned, the idea is to define some keywords on functions and performance with the purpose to conduct the state-of-the-art analysis and to give an overview for the subsequent procurement based on these procurement challenges that could be addressed through one or several pre-commercial procurement or public procurement of innovative solutions. What are these methodologies, and you have received some material already to reflect on these. The one is the functional analysis system technique that encourages to understand what is the scope of the problem and why and what and why you need to solve. The other one is the value stream mapping. These are also based on the lean methodologies to see the status as is now and what you want to achieve and what is the process to get there, and see how in this process the different steps bring you value or not. So you want to optimize those steps. And the other technique is the value sensitive design or value stream design that, of course, help us look into the value of the different steps to reach the desired and dream situation. So here I'm going to ask you to go back to the Mentimeter. Let's go there and see to the next question. The next question is, what are the most pressing climate challenges, problems your organization faces? And you can just type a word there. What is that you're experiencing at the moment? So I will give you a little bit of time for you to do that. You can enter a word and for example, you can have 3 words maximum. You could say, for example, I experience pollution in the water. Well, let's see. Let's wait a little bit further. Okay. Think also of your domain. We're looking at the marine and coastal environment. So what is that we have there? See. Okay. Energy resources. We have waste, we have water availability, we have some pollution, we have floods again. Okay, energy resources. I would like if anybody who mentioned energy, they have more. We have resilience monitoring. Okay, I would like to open a little bit the discussions. If you would like to, you can turn on your camera, or you just can do it with your microphone, turn in the microphone, or if you like, you can do it through the chat. But let's start a little bit of the discussions on these problems that you indicate. We see resilience monitoring. What do we mean by resilience monitoring? If I may give the word to the person who indicate that. Possible?
Yeah, it was me. Hello,
Yes.
Ana Lucia. So yes, I think I was thinking of many conversations we had with regional authorities, and one of the very difficult things they have is that they want to work on resilience, but the indicators and the sources of data are so diverse and different. So what they mean by resilience monitoring is how you actually use climate information to progress in a consistent way rather than trying to fill tons of gaps in an uncoordinated way. So I think it's resilience, but really this issue of monitoring at the level of a city, at the level of a region, at the level of a landscape. So that's what they mean.
Okay. And for example, how can this be done using if we relate this to Earth observation and climate services, where do we see some potential for innovation? Is this not done at the moment?
So, well, there's a lot that is done, but in fact, it's very often done in on a supply-driven basis. So, in fact, the offer is what technical capacities many of the services have. So that doesn't always match the way people understand their needs. And the other thing is that they are, as I said, indicators are very different, even within let's say if you're a region, every department has different indicators. So they will work with services that don't communicate with each other, so to speak. So I think quite a bit of the innovation is especially if I take a concrete example, you have, let's say, a medium-sized city with its environment, so the hinterland. And in fact, what they try to do is to do good arbitration on the investments, infrastructures, and so on. I mean, right now in France, there is a very spectacular tension about that around water, but there are even, less controversial things. And in fact, what they try to do is to have a kind of collection of services that give them the information across the different sectors. And the second thing is that they can actually make those services usable by people in the community so that they can discuss, in fact, put their needs together. For the moment, it's very difficult because what is measured, what is used as data is not the same. And Earth observation could be really useful because in a way, it's agnostic. I mean, it doesn't draw mostly on what the sectors say, but on what they observe, which can be cross-sectorial. So that's one of the dimensions I think they're interested in. So of course, to the short is that you're right. Of course, a lot of innovation is happening, but it's not necessarily coming together in a way that, let's say, as I said, the city or landscape can, and the communities within them can take them together and work on them.
Okay, that's very, very interesting, Tantan. Thank you. So that means that the services that are already being provided, but this is fragmented, and that they cannot be, there's not a cross-sectoral approach.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe there are some data which are overlooked because, in fact, they are not the priority data for a given user or a given sector. But in fact, when you want to do monitoring across sectors, then you really need those data that allow you to compare the impacts of within different sectors. And so there might be gaps. I mean, there might be some missing services, but they have not been identified because each of the actors cannot necessarily identify them so easily. Okay,
so it would be necessary to identify these gaps. That could be one way of looking at it. And I see Stefan has raised his hand. Please, Stefan.
Yes, thank you, Anna. In the Netherlands, we are having discussion at this moment to set up a sort of data hub by contracting authorities and public authorities to collect all kind of data sources and to look at them and to analyze them and etc. and to use them for the purpose of the specific goals. But perhaps that's something that's also in line with the feedback from TamTam. Is that correct? So perhaps that's more or less the same, that you would like to have a sort of data hub in which you collect all kind of and combine all kind of data sources. from all kind of satellite services, so to say, and then you need to analyze them, and you need to enrich them, whatever it is, in order to use them for your specific goal as contracting authority, but for example, in the coastal, on environmental aspects or whatever. Is that also one of the possibilities, Tam?
Yes, definitely, Stefan. Didn't want to open up.
Mhm.
Okay, so perhaps that we know that from the water sector in the Netherlands, if they are thinking about that, setting up such a data hub on a national level.
I think just to comment on what you said, Stefan, and then Lucia, do stop me because I don't want to
No,
monopolize
please,
the floor.
go ahead.
There is there is a data hub idea, but it's also the interestingly, I saw that in the southwest of France, for instance, there are several organizations which try to gather data at different scales. And one of them, for instance, it's on agriculture, and it's more in the center of France. In fact, they really gathered data across 53 indicators, so that's great. But then you see that between the different scales, there is a need to articulate those data hubs, because in fact they realize that some of the data they collect, let's say at a very local level, they don't have the levers of decision to act on those. And in fact, they would have to liaise with the regional level, which has the levers of decision, but which doesn't have this granularity of data. So I would say it's a data hub, as you said, but sometimes it's even a kind of cluster of data hubs that need to work together.
Mhm. Okay, so one way one of the problems to be examined is how to bridge these this information or connect these data hubs. Or I'm thinking, that's
yes,
one of the
absolutely.
problems.
So connect the data hubs or connect the way people are using those different hubs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because very often and I mean, you know that very well at Covers. In fact, the more and more the people who set up data hubs try to make them interactive so that users can feed in, And in fact, the way people will feed information in those data hubs, especially if they're not specialists of data, that also requires some work to make that consistent. So otherwise you get a lot of heterogeneity, which is good initially, but then you have a lot of work to proceed to process it and make it accessible to other users.
Mm-hmm. But that means that something needs to be developed there, or is just the way in which these already existing hubs and existing data is used?
It's both, really. It's both.
It's both. So
Yeah, it's both.
Which are the development needs in this case that you see?
Well, I would say some of them are technical, but a lot of that is relates to this issue of having user cases, So in fact, the organizations that provide the data, and for instance, we hear that a lot from ECMWF, and they are really for them to get the information on how actually those data are used and what is lost in translation, so to speak. That is very precious. Because otherwise they will continue, I'm of course oversimplifying, but they will continue to work on the assumption that the way that data are used is ideal. So in fact, they know they have an idea of what the data should be used for, but in fact, the way they are actually understood and and used and put together, that is a kind of black box to them in many cases. So some of the innovation can be in those intermediary levels, between the, let's say, processed data and upstream in the chain, and really downstream where many users whom you don't even know are using your data are actually using them and trying to action them. So so I guess I guess that would be my way of answering that.
Yes, thank you so much, Antam. You want to add anything, Stefan?
Well, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but there are several ways to look into this. So, of course, looking at public authority perspective and the contracting authorities that are using this kind of data to provide the public services. So, for example, environmental agency in the coastal region. So they need data in order to do their job. And what we would like to do is to have this kind of data in the best possible way, in the most effective, efficient possible way, and if they need the services related to data, well, to tackle their use cases. So that is one thing. And the other thing is that through the data hub, you can also have a discussion on, I call it open data for society. So we have a parallel discussion. So that's one of them is we are here for understanding what kind of data we use in order to improve our public services as public authorities and contact authorities working in these coastal regions. That's one side. And the other side, we're also having discussion that we would like to make this kind of data or data sets available to the public so they can, yeah, build on that and create their own services, whatever it is. But for me, that is not necessarily the same. So I don't know how the rest of the audience sees this, but I think that we have two clear goals. One goal is to improve the public services by using this kind of climate services to tackle the climate change issues that we're facing. So it's one clear road to move on. And then we have another possibility to say, okay, and at the same time, we can also make use of data for open data and make these kind of data sets open to the public. And let's move on with that, because we also have to comply with kind of new directives and regulation from a European perspective on this. But for me, that are two different goals. You understand what I want to say? So the goal to improve the public services. And for this, I need new climate services that are not existing yet. So there's clear that we need to have innovation. And then for me, that's a clear road that we have to go to. But anyhow, I would like to see some feedback from the audience, what they think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, perhaps if we have public authorities that working in the domain, in the marine and coastal environment domain, I would really encourage to your participation. No? I don't see any reply from. Okay. No. Okay, but let's then touch one of the other problems that was mentioned in the Mentimeter question. That's the floods. Who mentioned or who would like to, explain the problem experience in the floods? Whether this is a flood coming from raising of the sea level or other type.
If I may, Ana Lucia, it's Paolo speaking. I don't know if you
Yes, Paolo.
Thought I have my camera off, so I cannot turn it on. But
No problem.
But I added this because we are working a lot on this topic, and particularly we are working on all the flood types: coastal, pluvial, and fluvial, and working with some of our users, either public or private. We are experiencing an increasing need of getting the climate projection of the floods, particularly for example, the insurers or the public body that needs to, let's say, test and design new measures for the territory to cope with the increasing level of emergency that comes from flooding. That's why we have added flood to the pressing climate challenge problems we are facing with the some particularly public organizations, I think the regional authorities and the civil protection agencies in particular. In climate change perspectives, there are a lot of studies that tackle the problem now, but what is coming thanks to the climate change increase of these extremes is another story, and is what's on the table now with some of our users. That's why I was mentioning floods.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Paolo. And you have mentioned perhaps some different use cases. You have mentioned that, yeah, could you a little bit elaborate on those?
Well, you mean the different type of floods? No, I would say that one of the most interesting on the table now for the municipalities is the pluvial flooding, water bombs, extreme events. And this is also one of those that can be tackled in climate change perspective more easily, I would say, because we have some, we know where to take from Earth observation and from climate change projections, the increase of extreme when it comes to extreme rainfall. Another one that could be tackled in the same way is the coastal flooding, again for urban communities, particularly those along the coastline. In Italy, we have many of those examples because we have very long coastline. The less, let's say, a little bit beyond the line is the fluvial flood, in my experience. I mean, the projection of floods from rivers in climate change. We have informations also public available from Earth observation and climate change projection, particularly from JRC, for example. But at least according to our experience, we are a little bit beyond in, let's say, assessing the change in floods from river in a very accurate and high resolution way when it comes to river flooding. That's at least our experience. I would say those are the three main lines of action when it comes to characterize floods in climate change perspective.
Okay, and what is it needed to help prevent or solve the problem faster? What do you think that type of information or solutions required?
We are working a lot because we perceive that this could be the way to go. We're working a lot using high resolution data, particularly having a good topography. For example, LiDAR data. Those are the that can be coupled even with simple flood models in order to get a fast flood mapping. That's what, for example, we are working a lot with. So one possible solution could be that Earth observation provides at least the higher resolution digital terrain, not only for limited areas or for portion of nation of regions, but let's say for entire Europe, for example, no? So to speak. So having a high resolution is the first pillar, and then having climate change projection of the forces. I mean, the intense extreme rainfall and extreme sea levels, but this is something that we can really find out in the repositories of climate data. So I would suggest that we move towards having a high resolution digital terrain model as a good basis to perform better flood hazard analysis. And then we try to have also a climate change projection of the extremes that forces the floods.
Okay, just from my understanding, obtaining higher resolution is something that can be tackled by, yeah, you know, you take the data from Earth observation, from satellite information, but then the resolution of these data or of these pictures, or how is it improved?
Well, yes, the improvement could be this way. I mean, it's a fast changing world when it comes to digital terrain model from satellite observation. We see typically a few years ago the standard was around, let's say, 90 meters. Now we can see more and more product down to 30 meters, and as long as we can arrive around 10, which is not in the LiDAR wall, which is 1 or 2, but still reliably accurate, then we could, let's say, do a considerable improvement, at least to my experience in flood mapping. So I would say that if the satellite derived product could arrive down to around 10-meter resolution, that could be, roughly speaking, a good sign for, let's say, an improvement on flood mapping using that source of data. Of course, publicly available. I mean, not speaking about, let's say, private owned data.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on what Paolo mentioned. Make any addition to that? So that, Paolo, do you think then that one of the possibilities is to look in how the development of solutions for higher resolution could be done, could be some lead for further analysis? Or
Sorry, can you repeat?
yeah, that do you think that one lead to look further to see whether it's possible to have develop the solutions for of higher resolution is one of the things that we could explore? Or
Yes, we could. For sure, it would be interesting to, let's say, check out if among the available Earth observation product, which are increasingly, there is something that is pushing towards high resolution. For example, now we know that also the research is active in this field. We are also working in a ESA co-funded project to test how to derive such high resolution product as such DTMs from Earth observation from satellites. So shall we be aware that there are Earth observation products, either public or commercial, that can, let's say, go down to the resolution that we're mentioning? That would be for sure an interesting added value.
And this high resolution could not only serve the purpose of monitoring floods or having information on floods, but on other possibilities in other domains and other problems that need to be tackled.
Yes, typically urban planning. No, that's that kind of product can serve many possible users, not only when it comes to concerns about flooding. Particularly a higher resolution digital terrain model for urban planners, for those who have to figure out the evolution of the territory is one of the top basis layers to work with.
Okay. Thank you so much. Looking at other of the problems that I've mentioned, the water availability, perhaps the person who indicated this problem can explain a little bit further, if it's possible. I see, or maybe in the chat, if they don't want to let us know. I think somebody's typing. Okay, let's move. So let's see. What could also be interesting is to look at other non-EU Earth observation data. Is at disposition of public institutions, and what technical solutions can be used to integrate Earth observation data with these other available data. Okay, and how can, yes, Tamtam is replying. So this is something that we need to also write down. And this, I think, comes with the next question also for you. The question is, how can Earth observation data or services support the tasks of your organization to contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation? So you can go to the Mentimeter and perhaps share with us your thoughts. Go to this. Just quickly, we go to the next one.
And Lucy, I'm still stuck in the previous question.
Yes, sorry, we're coming now. I think you're really ready now. Yeah.
Anna, could you show the
Yes.
QR code again? Because we didn't, I couldn't see
Yeah.
the question, and refresh didn't help. So I need the QR code again.
Yes, sure. I'm going to the QR code. There you have it.
Yeah, now the time was gone, so I don't think anyone got the chance to answer.
Okay, no, that's not good. Let me see. But we can, let's see, perhaps refresh it or go back. Let's see. Okay.
Yes, now we see it. Just
Yeah. Can you still use it or?
Oh, it tells me I didn't vote in time.
No? Oh, okay, that's hopefully
I
fixed.
think you have to reset the answers, Ana Lucia.
Okay, how do let's see. Let me try to do this. Okay. Sorry for that, a little bit of a hiccup there, but how do I reset my answer?
You can go into the Mentimeter slideshow. And if you go out of the presentation mode, you
Yeah.
can go to the specific slide and to reset the answers.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to reset it. Let's see. Is the reset thingy? Okay, maybe we can just pass because I don't find the right click. Maybe you can write it on the
maybe
on
just
the chat.
answer in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, please answer in the chat. That would be good. I can answer.
But this is the previous question, Anna, right?
Yeah, I'm going to
So
pass it.
could you click?
This is the question. Thank you, Mati. Presentation. Okay, do we have some answers? Yeah, in the meantime, it would be nicer if we were all together face to face, but okay, that's all. Thank you, Paula. You mentioned providing high resolution DTMs and extension of flooded areas during floods. Take note of this. That's it. Okay, how could you mention if we have this specific need, how could you describe the present situation? What is the situation at the moment? Paolo, perhaps you already said a little bit about it, but yeah.
Okay. No, I was thinking about Mentimeter, but it's not. I was
Sorry for that. I don't know what. Yeah, I need to fix that problem. But you,
just 1 second, please.
Yes, you said providing high resolution. You mentioned this is some problem that could be solved, but providing high resolution DTMs and extension of flooded areas during floods. So what is the present
The
situation?
present situation.
How
yes.
is it done at the moment?
Okay, so I have already answered it. You were not.
Yeah. No?
Sorry, Ana Lucia, do you want me to further, let's say, go or? someone else to add the comments I didn't understand.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, for you, Paolo, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So
as I
you
was
say,
saying,
okay, that what is the situation at the
the
moment?
situation is that so
Mhm.
far, I see the trend. No, we are in a few years we have see products popping up, moving from 90 to 30. And I truly expect that something better, is coming in the years to come. So I see that the direction is promising, but still. There is also research. There are also research activity moving in this direction, meaning that
Okay.
there are some efforts to do to arrive to the
Okay,
goal.
just just allow me to interrupt you for a minute. But at the moment, if you have floods, how is it monitored, or what is the? I know that there's some research that's been conducted, but if you have this problem now, what is this assist situation? So now you
Yes.
don't have high resolution. So if you don't have high resolution, what is that you cannot do?
That's it. That's it. We cannot, for example, we cannot have the ground truth to bench for our fast modeling approaches, to see where how good they are. We have to, let's say, to compare them to other models, traditional models, but we don't have the true ground truth to bench them versus and see how accurate we can be in flood mapping or rapid mapping, or versus what has really happened. We have to rely on, for example, manual, we would say, delineation made by the Flood Protection Agency after the events. If we have, let's say, flood masks, flooded areas from satellite after 1, 2, 3 events, the more the better, then we could have a consistent benchmark to perform our climate services, to test the skills of our climate services that perform flood masking against. That will be there. That will do the job.
So at the moment you have to rely on certain mapping or certain delineations, and they have to compare it and to other models. And how is it done? How long it takes, for example, if you could give us an example.
Yes, about if you have to run a model a complex model just to compare a simple for rapid mapping, then it can take let's say a couple of weeks. If you have a flood mask, it can take from satellite, it takes let's say hours to get the benchmark. So the difference is considerable.
Oh, okay.
And time saving if you have a satellite derived product as a benchmark.
Okay, and how would you like to be the dream situation? So now we know it could take weeks. Let's say sometimes it takes weeks. And how would you like it to be ideally?
Ideally, you can get access through a web-based service or through an API to a repository of really extracted flooded areas at high resolution, again, not at low resolution. So it could take, ideally, it could take you, let's say, in the worst case scenario, a few hours to get those data down to your eventually computer in order to perform your analysis. So that would be ideally the dream. No?
Okay.
That you can ask this information as we can now access to Copernicus projections or other similar data.
And let's say if you get these in the worst case, oh yes, somebody wants to participate before that. But I was going to mention, Paolo, so then in the worst case scenario, if you have this information in 1 hour and you get the analysis, then what kind of actions can be taken?
Well, as it is a post-event, this is not dealing with the emergency. We are dealing more with planning. Now we could set up, for example, this kind of information could be used for example, for design purposes, or again for example, for post-event intervention. Now, if I have the flooded areas, then I could a reliable mapping of the flooded areas. I could, for example, check out the exposure and plan, for example, a series of inspections, a series of surveys, so to speak, in order to prioritize the surveys, in order to decide where to put the efforts after the event, not early warning, but post event. That could be one application. If it would be available in hours.
Only post event.
However, well, in this case, yes, because we are talking about mapping something that has already happened. But if I have them quickly, I could also try to fine tune one rapid mapping model to past serious event. For example, let's suppose I have a flood mask for a very intense event. I could fine tune a rapid mapping model on that, and as incoming projection and telling me that something similar is going to happen, I could make a guess on the incoming flood extended area. So having a good benchmark could be truly valuable also for near real-time applications as well.
Okay, that's really interesting. So now we have also already mentioned the as-is situation. So do you have that you take weeks to do the mapping, and yeah, perhaps it's a complex problem. Yeah, you cannot take actions immediately. And the desired situation is that it takes you 1 hour to have the mapping and the possibility to also react and perhaps even to project in order to, to have a rapid response to what can come. So which are the steps you think in order to get there? How would you see the steps there? Well, if you could think about this in this linear way on the steps to the desired situation.
Yeah, okay, so I imagine how to arrive to the to the results, no? So, well, ideally there could be at least one rapid mapping, one repository, sorry, where those flood masks are stored, no? And that I can access through a simple API. So this you mean the steps to arrive at the results, or
let's say now you describe, now it takes you this long. So what do we need now? You mentioned, okay, you have one repository and one API,
Okay, exactly. So the idea is that those masks, those flood masks, can be stored in a repository and get accessed through an API. That could be step one, and that I set up a connection to my rapid mapping climate service through API to this repository. And this is step two. So I connect the information with the service this information has to feed. And then step three, I physically, let's say, use the empowered and improved climate service with this new information to perform the final goal, which could be tuning the mapping algorithms and performing what-if scenarios or early warning scenarios. This could be the third step. So I would say prepare the data, connect the data, and use the data, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
Use the service, sorry. Use the service. That this could be the final step.
The final step would be use the service.
Yes. Use the empowered service. So that could be. Oh, how many steps? No, too many.
Okay, we're looking at 5 steps at the moment. Yeah, we're looking at 5 steps, and in this use case to see, okay, how do we improve those steps, and what is there to develop in these steps or to take into account in each of these steps? What is needed? What is lacking? What are the gaps that we have in order to get to this dream situation?
Well, for step one, so far, I say the gaps is having the higher resolution and I would say timely information from satellite. Now there's the big topic of let's say how timely can be a satellite derived observation when it comes to floods, which are phenomena that can occur in hours. No, so not necessarily we can have the information from satellite when it comes to this extreme and very quick events. So time, I would say, is the timely,
Time.
having the information timely and a high resolution. This could be the gap. No.
Okay.
Step 2 is just a connecting the information if it's available. It's actually not an issue because there are, as long it's established technology. So step 2 has no real gaps in that, I would say.
Yeah.
It's easy to connect this database once you have it. And for step 3, I would say there are step 3. Honestly, it's just a matter of let's say using an efficient algorithm, I would say. So it's a minor technological issue, but there are some examples out there on how to solve this issue. While step 4 is truly let's say applying conveniently these fast mapping algorithms. Once you have the information and you have established the connection, it's just a minor issue related to maybe the skills of the man beyond the screen. I mean, you have to get limited skills, a little bit of knowledge on hydrology and hydraulic in order to correctly, let's say, perform this analysis, this flood analysis. So far, I see in the first step the biggest challenge here, not to have the reliable information from Earth observation, and then the subsequent steps as only minor issues.
Okay, perfect. So I would say then in step 1 is the biggest value change that you would like to make.
Yeah, step 1, availability of this timely information and high resolution again. And the resolution is one crucial aspect.
Okay, perfect. That's how we like to see every use case in the domains. If we formulate a problem, we like to see what is the situation at the moment, to describe it the way Paulo has done it, and what is the dream situation. And then we see which steps we need to take to get there. So we find out where do we have to develop, where do we have to tackle the problems and how. So thank you so much, Paulo, because you really gave us a good illustration on how we describe a use case. And this is already a use case that we could use and we could examine further. Okay, let's see. Thank you so much. Anybody would like to make do we have any input, any observation here, any comment? No? Okay, well, so we're almost coming to the end of this workshop, and thank you so much for all your participation, but we have some results. We have formulated here a few problems already. Paulo has formulated the problem of possibility of having higher resolution to solve or to map the floodings. Tam pointed out the other problem of resourcing of information and how these data hubs could be improved or also connected cross sectors. So we have mentioned already these functionalities that we have. So in terms of mapping, in terms of connecting, in terms of improving the resolution. We have one use case that we have worked with, and we will have to examine further with the public authorities interested in the marine and coastal application domain to see whether it's interesting for them. And how, the question here is again, Paulo, if since you have provided the use case, if we're thinking about scenarios or value pilots, how could you pilot such, let's say, a solution like you were looking for, or a functionality that you're looking for, that to having the high resolution to mapping floods? Do you think in a way that we can pilot something like this, let's say in a dream situation?
Yes, well, in a dream situation, you mean just to have a pilot to test this workflow towards the different situation. Yes, we have done in the past with a very similar situation. So it's just a matter to find out, for example, a city along the coast, interested in mapping the coastal flooding, so to speak, and isolate through events in the past to get the flood mask of these events through satellite, and then see if the rapid mapping flooding algorithms from the service performs well or not versus this real happen event. So it could be done. It could be done in principle. We are also, as I was mentioning, working on that at a research level. No, with ESA.
And what would be there in this pilot, let's say, the most valuable result that you could like to achieve? What would be valuable from the results of the pilot?
You mean what would be valuable for the final user? Or
yes, for the final user, yeah.
So, so to speak, in this example, for the municipality, no? No, the municipality that has to deal with. Well, this what would be valuable is that they could, let's say, plan, no, the, mitigation measures towards coastal flooding through a very rapid mapping tool. They could perform many different flood scenarios, reasonable flood scenarios, somehow validated through the benchmark, and plan the changes of the city, the mitigation measures, the defense measures for the years to come. That could be the added value that such a service could offer to the public authority, the municipality in this case.
Great. That is really very good insights, Paolo. Thank you so much, because we've gone through the methodology, and we, thanks to your input, we have a use case, we have some functionalities, and we have some expression of what a pilot could be, what would be valuable for the public authority, in this case, the municipality that would be the user of this data.
Exactly.
Super. Thank you so much. Okay, so what are the next steps? We're finalizing on time. We have a few minutes to go on. We have, as an outcome of this workshop, we have one use case. And in the future, we need to select the procurement challenges. So we will have already this as one challenge or two that have been expressed here in this Pain Point workshop, and we would like to later on vote and score to prioritize this challenge. Also, the challenge coming from other application domains in the next workshops that we will have, the working groups that we will have today and tomorrow. So we'll come back to you with more information, and we will have this exercise of voting and scoring. We will define the final use cases and the keywords to perform the state-of-the-art analysis, including market search, intellectual property rights search, in order to define the technology readiness level of the solutions available in the market and see what is the need for development in order to have some grounds for innovation and for pre-commercial procurement, that is the procurement approach on the procurement of R&D services. So here, yes, indeed, we'll perform a SOTA. Sorry, too fast. And yeah, we will identify the room for innovation. And with that, I would like to thank you, everybody, for your presence here. We would like to have more public procurers involved, but we will follow up. Perhaps some of them could not join today, but the video will be recorded, and it will be available for them to look at it. And indeed, we will come back with the results and the conclusions. If you have any comments, you can contact me. Here's my email address. And I thank you very much. I will give the floor to any of you who would like to make any remark or any question. Please just feel free to go ahead. Nobody else. And also from our team, I don't know if Stefan would like to make a last comment, or any from the consortium. No, Stefan?
Thank you.
Okay, so we're just on time to finish, and thank you very much. We'll see you in the next workshop. Bye-bye.